Morning, everyone. It's Joe Waxman, and I'm back with another video. This morning, I would like to talk about Steve Jobs, CEO of Apple. He's dead now. We all know that. But he, along with Steve Wozniak, became the creators of Apple. Steve Jobs was kind of a legend. I mean, we did not have computers until the 70s, until Apple and Microsoft and all the computer people made computers, and he was one of the big ones. He was one of the main ones. And we all love the design of Apple. We all love the just the whole thing. Apple's its own brand. Apple's its own creation. It's its own artistry. It's something. It's a unique creation. So never mind some of the politics that have crept in with modern times. Apple is an incredibly successful brand of computers that has left an impression on all of us. So we appreciate it for that, with everything, obviously not just the laptops, computers, and it's also the tablets and iPhones and everything. I mean, it's pretty revolutionary. And Steve Jobs was a force in that whole genre, and we appreciate him for that. Okay, so he's got his son in Pisces in the 6th house. Steve Jobs was incredibly, he was very spiritual, believe it or not. I mean, he went to India after dropping out of college, went to study with Neem Karoli Baba, who was Ram Dass's teacher. Neem Karoli Baba, he's an Indian saint, very enlightened man. But by the time Jobs went to India, Neem Karoli Baba was already dead. But he stayed there for a while and studied with somebody else. And then he came back to California. By the way, he was born February 24th, 1955 at 7:15 p.m. in San Francisco, California. And then he studied Zen meditation. So he's into Eastern philosophy, Eastern spirituality. And that's very, that's very common with Pisces placements. I mean, not always, not all the time, but a lot of the times we'll see that. Not only that, Pisces is disposited by Jupiter, and Jupiter's conjunct Uranus. So his belief systems are going to be out of the box, out of the ordinary, not conventional, very expansive, very open-minded, very Uranian, very different. Interestingly enough, he was born he was an orphan, but he was adopted. So, I mean, talking about this Jupiter's ruling 4th house cusp, so we're seeing his early life here. So Jupiter's going into the 11th house. It's retrograde, but it's in Cancer, so it's an exalted Jupiter. Interesting, right? That he was adopted, but yet his Jupiter is exalted. And so his father was Syrian, his mother was American, and they had a baby, and she was poor, and she gave him up for adoption. Not exactly sure the details why, maybe poverty. But anyway, then he was adopted by these parents who were not rich, but they had a great relationship, and Jobs really loved his parents. He was very supported by his adopted parents. And so that's why we get this exalted Jupiter, which is also dispositing his son, and then conjunct Uranus. And that can show somewhat of the, interesting, unusual, outside the box upbringing by adoptive parents, right? So I just wanted to touch on that, his very unusual upbringing. He's half Muslim. His father is a Muslim Syrian, mother a Christian, American, and then his adopted parents were American. But yeah, interesting upbringing, right? It was said as a child he was very difficult, very stubborn, very rebellious. Okay, that's the Uranus, but incredibly intelligent, and we'll get to that. His moon's in Aries in the 7th house, and the 7th house moon is great because it can, you know, the heart, the emotions is right out there for everyone to see. It's all about, you know, it shows up in every relationship, in every one-on-one, in every encounter with others. They're going to naturally feel his heart. So it's very good for that relational, you know, development. But it's an Aries, so it's still quite, it's passionate, very fiery and aggressive, inspirational, but definitely not tame. Aries is just this hot, passionate, inspiring energy that's great for starting projects and great for motivating people. Not only that, he's got the Mars here, Mars in Aries, so aggressive, so hot-headed, so much temper, but forceful, active, you know, action-oriented, starting things, great for initiation, great for starting things, great for getting things done. In the 8th house, powerful, dominating, right? Ups and downs, death and rebirth. But 8th house really does not deal with equal relationships. So that's why one of the reasons Jobs was so difficult to work with, because he's got this Mars in Aries at the 29th degree in the 8th house. Excuse me. So that's really aggressive. That's really aggressive. Anyone who stands in his way, he wants to dominate, because, you know, it's even more, I mean, Mars in the 7th house is very controlling, but at least there's, excuse me, you know, 7th house is about fair, balanced relationships. In the 8th house, it's not. Any planets in the 8th house, there's a tendency to want to control and dominate in relationships. So this Mars is very aggressive, and it's backed up by the moon. So he's very Aryan, you know, like very like just, you know, bang out of my way, you know, like just let me do my thing. I'm, you know, Aries, bah! It's just explosive energy. You know, Aries energy is very fiery, very intense, very explosive. It doesn't last long, but all its energy is up front. Like it doesn't need, you don't need a long lasting Aries energy if you can do it in the first few minutes. Like just do your, like explode at your energy, get your way, and then be done with it. You know, that's Aries. Like they don't last long. The anger does not last long within Aries. If you're ever fighting an Aries, the way to beat an Aries is to endure. You're not going to beat them with the initial explosion, but you can last longer than them. They'll get over it. They'll calm down. They'll forget. Sometimes they'll even apologize for their explosive outbursts. But if you're a fixed sign, then you can last longer than them. So anyway, so yeah, he's got this very spiritual but fiery temperament, right? Virgo ascendant, so he's very critical, very intelligent, right? It's got the Gemini MC, very organized thinking. Sorry, somebody's blowing up my Facebook. Ignore that. But Virgo is very critical and has excellent taste, like excellent eyes for like refinement. Like a Virgo always knows the right way to do things, right? And the wrong way to do things. And you're probably doing it the wrong way according to a Virgo. I mean, I have Virgo moon, so it's I mean, it's annoying for me having a Virgo. It's annoying, you know, even the Virgo is annoyed by their own Virgo-ness. Like that's Virgo. It's just constant annoyance. Like they're annoyed at themselves for being annoyed at you, but you're annoyed at them for being annoyed at you. So everyone's annoyed with Virgo, but Virgos get shit done, right? They know how to do things. It's not that they're annoyed for no reason. They're usually right about their annoyance because they just know the right way to do things and the wrong way to do things, and you're doing it the wrong way. And they're going to have to do it for you, because if you want something done right, give it to a Virgo. All right. Anyway, let's move on. So, I mean, you know, when we're talking about computers and technology, obviously 11th house, Uranus, Aquarius, 3rd house. So he's got really great combinations for that. He was very intelligent, super intelligent. Let's look at that. Mercury is at a virtual standstill, 1 minute 59 seconds, incredibly slow. Mercury, and that shows in Aquarius, that shows intelligence. I mean, the guy is a genius. He's genius level intelligence, right? Not only that, Saturn, 2 planets stationary, Saturn is stationary. I mean, let's look at this. Mercury dispositing his ascendant and his MC. So it, him and his career in Aquarius. Aquarius is the sign, the sign that we look to for things like computers, invention, technology, right? Science. And so it's at a standstill, and it's not aspecting anything. I mean, this is genius level intelligence in the 5th house of creativity, right? So like here we have technological experimentation, Mercury communication. I mean, this is like computer. This is just compute. Just might as well just say computers right here. Invents computers. It should, they should take out the Mercury and just say invents computers, invents Macintosh computers, right there. That's what it should say, because that's excellent. I mean, what else do we want? And a Mercury that's standing still. And if you don't understand what a stationary planet means, I've said it many times, but I'll say it again. That's the most powerful planet when a planet is stationary, because it's focused. It's not moving. It's like, I'm right here. I'm not going to move until I figure this thing out. And so his mind is just standing still. And like, if you think about, like meditation, if you're a meditator, a spiritual type person, you meditate. When your mind is completely still, that's when it's most powerful, because when we're all chaotic, rushing around, oh my God, manic, like that, we're not thinking clearly. Our mind's a mess. It's when it's still, that's when we can think. And so a still planet has that power of quiet. It's completely quiet. So any thought that comes in, boom, that's so pointed, focused, aware, crystal clarity comes with the stationary planets. So, I mean, 5th house is great for education, great for invention, because it's a house of play. It's a house of fun. So when you have fun with the mental, mental things, Mercury, Aquarius, invention, he's inventing things, right? He's an inventor, and he's going to invent like technological things. Okay. He was very smart, and it says in the Wikipedia, he was always the smartest person in the room, and he always wanted to show it. That's the Mars and Moon in Aries. And that's the stationary Mercury in Aquarius, right? Now, Saturn also plays a role, because Saturn is ruling the 5th house cusp and the 6th house. And 6th house, by the way, definitely plays a great role in anything sort of intellectual or critical or editing, sort of, because it has the Virgo quality. It's just that hardworking house where, the mind is really focused and aware. And so that's really strong. It's in Scorpio, so that's not great. And we know that he had health problems later in life. But it's at a standstill. It's Saturn here is very, very focused. So we have the 3rd house dealing with media, communications, skills of the hands, but 3rd house is very much about, intellect, and we'd want a good 3rd house as well. That's going to really boost his intellect, really strengthen his ability to understand media, multimedia, all those things. Scorpio, digging deep, discovering, all the hidden things, all the secrets. Saturn, working hard. But as Scorpio obviously has its problems. I mean, Saturn in Scorpio is well, it's a heavy placement, very heavy, very deep, very heavy. Saturn is not, I mean, it's not doing great. It's not debilitated, but it's not doing great in Scorpio. I mean, it's heavy, but it is adding to his intelligence, his endurance, his intellect, his everything. I mean, it's helping a lot, because it's at a standstill, right? And it's disposited by Mars, and Mars is in good dignity in Aries. So that's interesting. It's also trine this Jupiter, Uranus again. I mean, Uranus is the planet, besides Aquarius, Uranus is the co-ruler of Aquarius. Uranus is the planet we'd want to see very prominent. It's in the 11th house. 11th house is the natural Aquarian house of the natural zodiac. So like computers, networks, networking, groups, career success. Exalted Jupiter is really boosting, making this Uranus very strong, right? And this is ruling the, okay, so it's the 6th house cusp. But this is excellent for for computers, for network, for technology, for invention. Jupiter and Saturn, or sorry, Jupiter and Uranus together. So his not only are his beliefs out of the box, but his mind is very expansive. His mind is very inventive. It's very big and open and wide open for invention, for technology, for all of that. It's also square Mars and Neptune. So Neptune's opposite Mars and squaring this. So these are all playing together. Neptune is one of the planets we would want for imagination, right? So it really helps out, in the inventive process. You need to be very imaginative with any sort of invention. And it's in Libra, so a very intellectual sign, 2nd house. His finances might have, I have Neptune in the 2nd house, and Neptune in the 2nd house is really difficult for maintaining assets. Assets come and go, assets disappear, assets appear magically. 8th house is the house of death and rebirth, ups and downs, sudden loss, sudden events, sudden happenings. Aquarius, Uranus is a planet of sudden things as well. So here we can see like one of the reasons why Jobs was forced out of Apple, right? But 8th Lord in the 8th house shows that from difficult events come good things, right? So then he was reinstated as the CEO many years later, and he rescued Apple because he's actually the genius. And that's one of the reasons we know, like, it wasn't just like circumstance, happenstance. It was Jobs. Jobs made Apple into something amazing. It was his inventive ability. And we can see that all over the place here. All right, these stationary planets, this excellent Mars, Jupiter, exalted Jupiter with Uranus in the 11th house, 3rd house Saturn, stationary, this axis, but ups and downs, losses, sudden events, sudden ups, sudden downs, things like that. Very creative, but very stubborn and aggressive as well. Okay. Moon is square the nodes. It's a little bit wide, but not too bad, 4 degrees. So that is showing something very fateful, right? That's the way I look at it. There's different interpretations. Some people say that, well, I don't want to go into all the different explanations, but it's a skipped step. Some people, in evolutionary astrology, skipped step. I like to look at it as something that a person has to deal with along their way to their north node, because it's in between the north node and it's tension. And so that represents a fated event along somebody's life. Something happens, it's a certain destiny that needs to take place within a person's life. So Moon and Aries, so that could indicate relationship, but Moon is ruling the 11th house, so it could very much as well deal with the career success and Apple computers and all that. But there's something very pointed, purposeful about this Moon in Aries. So yes, Pluto is in Leo in the 12th house. This is a very difficult position. It does spur someone towards spirituality, and if not, towards destruction, because Pluto is that destructive force, right? And in the subconscious, I have this position, so I know through experience, it's very difficult because you're driven by this unseen, unknown. It's like an itch that you cannot scratch. Planets in the 12th house are like an itch you cannot scratch, but Pluto is such intense desire. So it's like a really, really intense itch that you can't scratch. So it's very painful, in fact, because you're being driven towards all these things, and drugs is a common outlet for Pluto in the 12th house. A lot of placements for Pluto, but particularly in Pluto in the 12th house. And he did a lot of acid and drugs, but he gained a lot from it as well. Let's see what else, but the constructive way to deal with Pluto in the 12th house is spirituality, because what it wants is your soul growth, and 12th house is a spiritual placement. And so you have to very consciously evolve with Pluto in the 12th house. Otherwise, you will destroy, and you can become a drug addict, a criminal, just involved in all sorts of destructive, crazy behavior with Pluto in the 12th house. So spirituality was necessary for him. It's got some nice trines here, or sextile to Neptune and trine to Mars. That's very good, because at least it has some healthy outlets, right? Healthy connections. So you can, release some of that pressure from Pluto in the 12th house through his Mars and through his Neptune. It's got a square to Saturn. So that, again, that's very driven. That's very forceful. And that's another reason why he was so difficult to work with. Pluto and Saturn in any difficult aspect is just, it's just workaholic, basically. It's just driving that hardworking, Pluto is driving Saturn deep. Saturn is making Pluto very, serious and hardworking. Together, they're just a force, very, very heavy, intense force. And it's going to be taken out on this Mars and this Moon, very aggressive, very, hot-headed, just forcing his way, through life to get his point, to do what he wants, very aggressively. Okay. What else? Venus is in Capricorn again. Not great for Venus. Venus in Capricorn will, in the 5th house, is Venus in the 5th house is good. It's good for creativity, right? But in Capricorn, it's going to be a very dry Venus, a very hardworking, dry, and it's good that he's not a woman. That would have made him even more miserable, because Venus is the femininity. So Venus in Capricorn in the 5th house is giving him that very dry, design that Apple has. Like it wasn't elaborate. It was very, Apple had, Jobs always wanted Apple to have this very refined look, this very simple look, pared down, one button touch, kind of thing. I think that very much relates to Venus in Capricorn in the 5th house, right? It's a very serious Venus, but it is in the 5th house, so it's still going to have that creative influence, that sense, this very simple Capricornian, Saturnian design. And Saturn, again, it's in Scorpio, but it's standstill. So there is some strength to this. It's just a very dry, hardworking Saturnian kind of Venus design, sense of design. South Node is in Cancer in the 10th house, and this gives him early rise in his career success. I mean, he was already, tinkering with electronics at a young age. Steve Wozniak was the main designer of the original Apple, but it was Jobs who took it to the next level. Wozniak was not, Wozniak was the, I think he made the original Apple, but it was Jobs who brought it to, who made it sellable, and who made it, big and famous. And so without Jobs, I mean, Steve Wozniak couldn't have done it, or at least didn't do it on his own. We can say that he didn't do it on his own. Jobs is the one who really brought it to the world. So that's South Node in the 10th house. Later, he's much more in the 4th house in Capricorn. So Capricorn still has that ambitious nature, right? versus Cancer is very much more about creativity. Cancer is a watery sign. I mean, it's a water sign, but it's the sign of the mother. So there's a very creative element to Cancer as well, because Cancer mother creates children, right? Like the sun and Leo is a creative force, but it's more like the fatherly creative side, whereas Cancer is more like the motherly creative side. So anyway, the creativity was very strong in his early years. Later, it was more about building business, because Capricorn is very success oriented, very business, CEO, leadership, all that, material success. But fourth house is about gathering and building. And he did build up Apple once it was already created. Once he was reinstated, he really built it up into like this massive empire. Fourth house dealing with empire, especially in Capricorn. Also, he built a program, a company called Next, and as well as Pixar. And Pixar became, incredibly famous for its computer animation. Jobs was behind that, right? And so this is all about building an empire. So that's, yeah. Another interesting thing about Pisces sun in the sixth house, if we look to the Pisces chart, fifth from Pisces, Leo, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, 6 from Pisces, my bad. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So sixth house, Pisces sun has a Leo quality. So this is Leo. So Pisces sun in the sixth house is very generous, because it's 6 from the 6 is Leo. So it has that Leo quality where it shines. So this is a secondarily shiny sun, because it's pulling from the sixth energy into the sixth house. It's a little complicated, but if you understand the way that it works, it's 6 from the 6. So it's above concept in Vedic, where you look to the house from the house to get a secondary sort of view of the house. Yeah. Anyway, so this is a very generous, very there's a certain dignity to Pisces sun in the sixth house, because it can be very, very giving, caring, generous, hardworking. Pisces has a way of shining in the sixth house, everyday work, because they're so big and magnanimous. They can take, also Pisces is the natural ruler of the 12th house. So their sixth house and 12th house axis are complementary. They can make magic out of daily mundane life work. So they really love work. Pisces sun in the sixth house is not a bad position, right? Okay, well, I think I've covered everything that I want to cover. He doesn't have a grand water trine, but he does have all 3 water signs represented. So like, the spirituality, the deep creativity, it's all well represented with jobs. He was a very deep feeling man. Eventually his Cancer got the best of him. We could look to, sun in the sixth house is generally considered quite good for health. But then we look to the ruler, was very, very strong, being stationary, but it's in Scorpio, and Scorpio is the house, the sign of death. And it's not, it's not it's still going to negatively affect it, apparently, and it has. So, yes. What else? North Node's conjunct Ceres. I don't know how that plays in, because Ceres deals with, loss and the mother and food, and so I'm not sure if that really relates. It's square to the moon, but I left it in there. I don't know, just because it was there. Pallas Athena on the I see that relates to strategy, pattern recognition, and again, with Jupiter being exalted, I think that probably plays into his ability to make Apple computer so successful, because it is a very intellectual planet. It deals with, wisdom and strategy and patterns. So it feels computer related to me. Anyway, I think that's it for jobs. He's got a lot of squares, a lot of aggressive energy, but a lot of very powerful, inventive energy. And he literally is the smartest guy in the room. So there's that. And this is an unaspected Mercury. So it's just like runaway. It's like, runaway Mercury, stationary into, creative invention in computers. Genius. This is genius. All right, guys. That's it for Steve Jobs. If you like this content, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share. Go to my website. Look at my shirt's all wrinkled. Trying to look nice here. Macroastrology.com if you want to book a reading. And I will be back soon with another video. All right, bye.